The most widely recognized role of the kick in freestyle is to create a lot of propulsion. It's often recognized that the kick can enhance body position as well. One aspect of the kick that's absolutely critical, but much less appreciated, is the impact on creating and controlling rotation. Let's take a look at when it happens, why it happens, and why it's so important. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. When swimmers swim freestyle, moving the arms in opposition is going to create rotational forces that swimmers need to manage. And the kick plays a key role in managing those forces. If you've ever had swimmers swim with a band and they tie their ankles together, you'll notice that it's much more difficult for swimmers to swim straight and to rotate effectively. Their legs will tend to wiggle, they'll tend to wave, and even if swimmers do a really good job of preventing that happen, it's still there to a much more significant degree than if swimmers were kicking. Every kick has a rotational aspect on the stroke, and those kicks either aid in the rotation of the body or they prevent the rotation of the body. And the role that the kick plays will depend on what the arms are doing. At certain parts of the stroke, kicking aids in the rotation of the body to help swimmers use their arms more effectively. And at other points of the stroke, kicking minimizes the rotation of the body to assist in the actions of the arms. The reason that swimmers take 6 kicks is because they have to time the kicks at certain places to enhance the actions of the arms. It's not random, it happens for a reason, and in this video, we'll take a look at why that's the case, we'll take a look at where those kicks happen, and we'll describe why they're happening at that point. This is a key reason that kick timing is so important, because if these kicks don't happen at the right time, it becomes much more difficult for swimmers to organize their overall stroke. In a previous video, I covered different types of 6-speed kick timing, and so swimmers can use their kicks in slightly different ways to facilitate and manage their rotation. We're going to take a look at one primary way here, but the principles are all the same. The kick has a predictable impact, and when swimmers use that kick at a certain time, that can either be to their benefit or their detriment. So first off, we're going to take a look at vertical kicking just to demonstrate what happens to the body when the swimmer kicks. And so what we'll see here is every time the swimmer kicks forward with that left leg, that's going to move the left hip back. And when he kicks forward with the right leg, you can see that moves the right hip back. Now, obviously, these are subtle changes, and it's not going to be this massive movement that's going to happen, but these small changes do make a difference, and they are magnified with more intensive kicks and faster kicks. So the key idea is when a swimmer kicks forward, and in freestyle they're going to be kicking down, that's going to move the hip in the opposite direction. It's going to move the hip up. So when the swimmer kicks forward here with the right leg, you can see that shift and the right hip moves back or up in the case when he's on the surface of the water. So kick forward here, you can see that shift to the left on the left side, and then kick to the right, and then the right side is going to shift back. So that's what's happening when swimmers kick. There's going to be that subtle adjustment. Now let's take a look at it in freestyle. We'll just take a look at the left arm here. We'll focus on one arm at a time. So the left arm is out in front. The swimmer is rotated onto her left side, and the left leg is about to kick. And so in order to set up her stroke, she needs to rotate back towards the middle. And so what's going to happen, she starts to set up her stroke. The left leg is going to kick down, and boom, you can see there's a very quick rotation there. And so she goes from this position here, and then she gets to a pretty flat position pretty quickly. But then at that point, she's now set up her stroke. So right here, she starts to really apply pressure to the water. And at that point, she needs to apply as much pressure backwards as possible. To do that, she needs to actually stop rotating. And so her pull, it's naturally going to rotate her to her opposite side, but she actually kind of wants to stop that at this point. So again, she can maximize the amount of force that goes straight back. So what's going to happen, again, her pull is rotating her to her right side. So her left shoulder will be moving up, her right shoulder will be moving down, but she's going to kick on the opposite side right there. And this is the main propulsive part of the stroke when she's applying the most force. And so what's happening is she's kicking on the other side to actually stop or minimize or control the amount of rotation that happens. That gives her a little bit more time. And again, it's not a huge difference, but we're talking about swimming as fast as possible, so everything matters. That stops her from rotating, and that allows her to apply more pressure into the water for a very small amount of time. But then, After that's done, then at this point, she needs to get the arm out of the water. She needs to accelerate through the back of the stroke. She needs to recover the arm, and she needs to open the hip up so that she can quickly recover the arm over the water. So what happens? Boom, that left leg kicks again. That pops the left hip up. That creates the space for her to recover the arm. So the kicks are critical for either allowing the rotation to happen or stopping the rotation from happening. So again, as she pulls through here, that's going to naturally rotate her left side up. But in the middle of the pull, she needs to momentarily stop that rotation or slow it down. It's not really going to stop it. And that allows her to apply more force for a longer period of time, which allows her to move forward faster. And if we switch to the other side, so now she's on her side here. She's kicked on the left. That's opened her up. She's now rotated to her right side. That's great for recovering the left arm, but now she needs to get back to the other side in order to create propulsion on the right side. So what does she do? She kicks on the right side as she's setting up the stroke. That gets her more horizontal in the water. Now she can really start to apply pressure with the right arm. The left leg is going to kick. That stops the rotation, at least momentarily. And then boom, she's now trying to finish her stroke. She needs that space. So there's that kick on the right side. So again, the timing of it is absolutely critical to allow her to, as effortlessly as possible and as quickly as possible, transition between the different points in the stroke. She needs to get from the left side here to a flat position so she can apply pressure. Once she gets to that position, she needs to stabilize her body, at least temporarily, to apply a little bit more force. And then she needs to quickly rotate a little bit more to create space so that she can recover the arms. Now, if she didn't have the kick, as you've seen, if swimmers have a band on their ankles, they can still make this all happen. But it's much more difficult to do. It's not as effective in terms of creating propulsion. Their body line is almost always compromised, and it takes a lot more effort. The kick allows these shifts, allows these positional changes to happen faster and with less effort so that the arms can do their work. So now she's on the right side again, but this is not a good position to be in to set up the stroke. We get that kick there. That gets the shift. Now she can apply a lot of pressure. She's got her arm set up in a way that can move a lot of water. Then she starts to do that. That gets the stability. And then she quickly switches through. And then she opens up with the kick on the right side again so that she can recover. So the kick timing is critical. It allows swimmers to swim more effectively by controlling, in some cases stopping, in some cases increasing the amount of rotation that happens. So we've got another swimmer here, and this is actually going to be a little bit different because this swimmer actually uses a gallop or a lope stroke, but we're still going to see the same basic concepts here. So what happens here is he's on his left side, and he needs to get over to his right side so that he can set up his stroke. Boom, there's the left-sided kick. Now he's flat. Boom, there's the right-sided kick, which keeps him stable, and you can see how quickly he shifts from the left side right here to flat. You can see that transition, but he doesn't continue to rotate. Boom, right through there, he's kicking with the right side to keep him square to the water so that he can apply more force. And then boom, at the end, there's the kick again, and he really opens it up. So with this swimmer, these changes are a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more obvious. There's a quick shift, there's the pause, and then there's the shift back. So now he's on his right side. He needs to get back to flat to apply more pressure. Boom, there's that right-sided kick. Now he's level, and then he needs to stay there. Boom, there's the left-sided kick that pumps the brakes a little bit, slows the rotation a little bit, and then boom, there's the kick on the right side to open him up all the way so that he can recover the arms quickly. So compared to the swimmer before, his kick timing is going to be a little bit different, not so much in relation to what the arms are doing, but because the arm timing is different, because he's loping, the kick is going to adjust as well, but it's still serving the same function. So he has to kick here to get over to his right side to get flat first. Boom, there it is. And now he's going to kick on the other side to stop the rotation, to control it. And then boom, there's another kick again. That opens him back up. We'll see it one more time here. And now he's on his opposite side and he needs to get back to flat. That kick helps rotate him there. And now he needs to stop the rotation with that left kick during the right pull. And then as he finishes, he really opens things up and uses that kick to open the hip, create some space to recover the arm, and then we have it. So kick timing is really important, but it happens for a reason. It's to manage the rotation of the body. And the more effectively swimmers can execute their kicks at the right time, that's where we see rhythm, that's where we see flow, and ultimately, that's where we see speed. One more swimmer here, he's going to be using a catch-up stroke, and so his arm timing is going to be a little bit different, but those kicks are still serving the same basic purpose. So if we watch his right arm here, what's going to happen? That right leg is going to kick. That opens up the space to allow for the recovery, but now he's worried about with his left arm setting up the stroke. He doesn't want to be on that left side too much longer, so you're going to see the left leg kick, boom, that gets him flat. That gets him in a position where now he can apply pressure with the water straight back. So you can see the big shift there with the left leg kick, and then the rotation stops there as he really applies a ton of pressure to the water. And then right there, you can see that kick at the end really opens him up so that he can recover. And now the same process is going to happen on the other side. He needs to get off of that right side. He needs to get back to flat in order to apply more pressure. That kick on the right side, boom, you can see a huge twist through the body there happening as a result of that kick, but he doesn't continue to roll through as now he starts to apply pressure. That left kick stops the rotation, and just watch there. See how quickly there's the shift with the kick, and then it doesn't continue. He stops it, and then it continues through when he finally kicks on the right side again, and that opens him up. So a little bit different stroke timing, but the same basic thing. We've got that initial rotation, we pump the brakes, and then we continue with the rotation to allow for the recovery. So that first kick is helping swimmers set up the stroke. The second kick is helping them apply a ton of pressure to the water, and that means a lot of propulsion. And then that third kick is going to allow them to recover the arms. So get in a position, apply pressure, and then recover the arms. When you understand why it's happening, it becomes much easier to see what's happening. It's easy to recognize the importance of the kick in backstroke. It helps swimmers create more propulsion and it improves their body position. However, there's an aspect of the kick that's often underappreciated. The kick is critical for managing rotation, and managing rotation is critical for creating speed throughout the whole stroke. Let's take a look at how the kick influences rotation in backstroke, why it matters, and when it happens. As in freestyle, the kick in backstroke is used to increase and prevent rotation from happening within the stroke. Because the arms are moving in opposition, that's going to have a rotational impact on the stroke, and if swimmers can't control that rotation, they're going to struggle to create as much speed as possible. It's going to be more difficult to create propulsion with the arms, and it's going to be more difficult to stay in line, which allows them to create less drag. The vast majority of backstrokers are going to be using a 6-beat kick, and those 6 kicks are timed at critical points within the stroke cycle. There are occasional exceptions where elite swimmers do not use a 6-beat kick. However, they still use the timing of the 6-beat kick, but they tend to leave out 1 or 2 kicks. So the kick is still facilitating those same goals during the kicks that are used. It's just that some kicks are omitted. When the kick happens at the right time, it allows the body to be in the right position for the arms to do their work. Each kick influences the rotation of the body. In some cases, it magnifies the rotation, and in other cases, it prevents it. Rather than explaining all the details in theory, let's check it out in elite athletes. So I showed this same video when talking about freestyle, kick, and rotation. We're going to take a look at it again to get an understanding of how the kick facilitates rotation. So if we watch, every time the swimmer kicks forward here, the kicking leg, that same hip is going to move backwards. So if we watch, every time the swimmer kicks, the hip is going to move towards that side. You can see it there. He shifts to his left when he kicks left, and then he shifts back to his right when he kicks to his right. So every time he kicks, there's going to be a subtle shift in the hips. And so what's important is that if swimmers kick with the body rotation, that's going to magnify the rotation that's created. And if the swimmer is rotating to their left and they kick with their right leg, that's going to prevent rotation from happening, or at least reduce the amount of rotation that occurs. So again, every time the swimmer kicks forward, that same side is going to move back. And so that's what's happening with each kick, and that's going to influence rotation when swimmers are swimming. So again, kick forward, that side moves back, kick forward, that side moves back, kick forward, that side moves back. And so there's a rotation towards the side that's kicking forward. One of the key skills in backstroke is that swimmers need to get on their side or they need to rotate to the same side as they are pulling. If you have your arm straight out to the side, there's no way that you can get into an effective catch position unless you rotate to that side so that the arm can be under the water and then still be manipulated so that the whole arm is facing backwards. So right here, you will see that rotation. So that allows her to get into a position to set up her stroke effectively. Now what's happening, what you need to watch for is right here, she's shifted to her right and she's gonna kick forward with the left leg there, right there. And again, like we just talked about, kick forward with the left leg, it's gonna rotate to the left side, and that's gonna allow her to quickly get in a position to pull effectively. If we watch the right side, right here, the right leg is gonna kick up, and you can see that the hips shift to that side, and that allows her to quickly get in position to create a lot of propulsion. And so that's gonna be one of the key timing events in backstroke right there, is you're gonna get an exaggerated rotation. It's gonna happen a little bit more, it's gonna happen a little bit faster, it's gonna happen a little bit easier so that swimmers can get on their side quickly in order to create an effective pulling position. And again, it's not about more rotation, it's about allowing that rotation to happen quickly and to happen easily. Because the faster it can happen and the more easily it can happen, the faster swimmers can rate up, and it's gonna be easier to sustain it. So we'll see it again right here. She's trying to get onto her right side so she can set up the stroke. The kick, that's gonna shift the hips there. So now she's on her side, and now she's ready to pull. So the next key element is that when swimmers are on their right side and they pull at the top with their right arm, that actually tends to exaggerate the rotation. If you can kind of put yourself in that position, you rotate, you realize that you continue to move to that side. So we don't want that. Swimmers need to be stable when they start to really apply pressure. And so what's gonna happen is she's gonna start pulling there and she's gonna kick with the left leg. And you can see that the hips are gonna shift up a little bit. They're gonna rotate a little bit towards the center again. And what that allows, it prevents the rotation further to the right, and it allows swimmers to apply a lot of pressure, but because the kick is happening on the opposite side, it creates stability in the rotation. It prevents more rotation from happening because the two torques, one from the leg and one from the arm, are working in opposition. That prevents movement, which allows swimmers to apply a lot of pressure to the water. And so we'll watch the same thing here on the other side. She kicks forward, she gets on her side, now she starts to pull. Then we get the kick on the right side to create some stability, and then that allows her to apply more pressure. Now, when we get to the back half of the stroke, and if you can just do this here, you put your hand about belly button width and you push down, you're gonna feel that you rotate away from that hand. But swimmers need to continue to apply pressure to the water. So at that point, the arms are rotating the body away from the hand. And if we watch this recovery arm, that's almost in the water. And then so that movement there is going to be facilitating the rotation to the right as well. But what the swimmer needs, they need to stay on their side a little bit longer in order to continue to apply pressure. Because if they spin away from it too fast, they're gonna lose their position on the water. And so during the back half of the pull here, what's gonna happen, the swimmer's gonna kick up on that same side. That prevents the rotation from happening until the pull is finished. And then right there, the pull finishes, the arm on the other side's ready to go in, and then we're back to the beginning. The right leg quickly kicks, that gets the rotation, and then the swimmer's in position to pull. So the first kick here aids rotation to the side to help swimmers get into an effective pulling position. And then the second kick right there, that prevents rotation further to the right, allowing swimmers to apply more pressure to the water. That means more propulsion, there's more stability. And then the same thing, now the body's trying to turn to the left here. And then during the second half of the pull, the body is trying to rotate to the left due to the finish of the pull and then due to the entry of the left arm into the water. So the same side is going to kick. That's going to prevent the rotation from the left because that same side kick is going to have a rotational effect to the right. That allows swimmers to finish their stroke. And then the instant that the stroke is finished, that kick is finished, and then the swimmer is kicking with the other leg to get that quick rotation to the other side. So it's all about getting onto the side quickly and then staying in position for as long as possible during the pull to create as much propulsion as possible. So the second two kicks are allowing swimmers to prevent rotation to stay on that side of the body so that they can create more propulsion from a stable position. And so the kicks are critical to initially allow for rotation and to accentuate rotation to make it happen faster to get into position. And then the kicks there, and then there, act to prevent rotation to allow swimmers to apply more propulsion, and then there's the quick shift to the other side to start the next stroke cycle. So we have a different swimmer here, slightly different angle, we're going to see the same things. And so if we watch here with the right side, she enters, then boom, there's that kick on the right side, the same side. That quickly gets her from a level position right over to her side real fast. And then she's going to really start to apply pressure. That left leg kicks, that keeps her stable. And then the right leg is going to kick again, that keeps her stable. And then as soon as she finishes the stroke there, the left side is going to go, and that gets her onto the left side. So it's the same thing here. It's a 6-beat kick, but those kicks are happening at a very specific time to manage the rotation that's happening throughout the stroke. So the right leg is kicking there to create stability during the front half of the pull, and then the left leg is kicking to create stability during the second half of the pull. And again, that right arm is just entered, and so that's going to have a strong rotational component that's going to move the swimmer to the right. But by kicking to the left, it allows swimmers to hold on to that last bit of their stroke to create a little bit more propulsion. And then to compensate for that delay in the rotation, there needs to be a quick kick on that right side, which immediately gets her onto the right side. You can see she's got a really, really good setup of the stroke, and that's made possible by quickly shifting onto that side with the right leg. Now she's starting to apply pressure. Left leg stabilizes the torso, right leg stabilizes the torso, and then the quick shift with the kick on the left gets her back over to the other side. So it's absolutely critical to have an effective kick and for the kick to be timed effectively so that the entire stroke can work more optimally. It allows swimmers to maintain great alignment because it prevents the body from moving from side to side, and it helps facilitate more effective arm actions because it helps swimmers get into effective pulling positions, and then it allows them to stay in effective pulling positions for as long as possible and apply more pressure because there's more stability. Just like in freestyle and backstroke, rotation occurs in butterfly. However, as first introduced by Bill Boomer, in freestyle and backstroke, swimmers are rotating on their long axis, and just like in freestyle and backstroke, the kick plays a key role in managing rotation in butterfly. One kick magnifies rotation, and one kick controls it. Let's find out how, and let's find out why. The kick plays a huge role in butterfly in both helping swimmers create more propulsion and less resistance. And the kick does so largely by managing the rotations that happen across the short axis of the body. And so instead of rotating from side to side, swimmers are rotating up and down. Whenever swimmers kick, they're going to kick back and they're going to kick down. And that's going to have a rotational effect on the hips, rotating them up in the water. So the hips are going to rotate up, the upper body is going to rotate down. Now, after the recovery, swimmers are in a relatively inclined position, and then the upper body is going to rotate down. And at the same time, the kick is going to occur, which rotates the hips up, which further magnifies the rotation down of the body. One, that allows swimmers to get in a more level position so that they can eliminate drag, create less resistance. And two, it puts them in a position where it's much easier to set up the stroke, and so it prepares them to create more propulsion. So in one case, the kick is serving to magnify the rotation of the body. The second kick is going to occur as swimmers finish their pull. And when swimmers pull, there's a rotational impact across the short axis that lifts the upper body up and presses the hips down. So swimmers are rotating up as they pull. And you can see that as they rise in the water when they pull. And during the second half of the pull, swimmers are going to kick, and that has a rotational effect in the opposite direction. And so now we have the pull, which is rotating the body up, and the kick, which is rotating the hips up. So what happens? So they largely cancel themselves out. And that has a significant impact on the stroke. One, it's going to raise the swimmer up in the water a little bit, which is going to make it easier for them to eventually recover the arms. But more importantly, it's going to prevent rotation across that short axis. And so what that means is now that there's a whole lot more stability from which swimmers can pull against. So if the kick wasn't there, they just continue to rotate up, and there's not a whole lot of stability to move water back with. But when the kick happens, it locks the body more or less in place, and now swimmers have something to pull against, which makes it a lot easier for them to create a ton of propulsion. So that second kick is actually minimizing the amount of rotation that's created to allow swimmers to recover their arms more effectively and to allow them to create more propulsion. Now, if you recall previously when we talked about freestyle and backstroke, one of those kicks during the middle of the pull serve to stabilize and control the rotation so that swimmers can create more propulsion during the heart of the pull. And that same effect is happening here in butterfly. So rather than just speaking conceptually, let's take a look at elite athletes making it happen. So what we'll see as with this first kick here is the kick will happen, the hips will rotate up, and you can see that really quick movement here. He's kind of level in the water here, and then very quickly, the hips rotate up, the upper body rotates down, and that's going to allow him to create a lot less resistance as he moves through the water. And so if he was more at an angle moving through the water, it's going to be a lot more resistance, so he needs to get that rotation to get the hips back up. Now he's level in the water. So second, now he's in a position where he's pitched down a little bit. That allows him to get his upper body, his arms, in a position where they can start to create a lot of surface area. And then as he rides out of that position, he can really create a lot of propulsion pulling back there. And then as we talked about, once swimmers start to apply pressure to the water here, especially when they're doing it in both arms, it happens in freestyle as well, but definitely when both arms are working at the same time, there's going to be a rotational effect which raises the upper body and at the same time will drive down the lower body. And so to prevent that, what's happening, we see that kick, and that's going to prevent the drop of the hips. And again, he's really kicking into the water at this point where he's really starting to apply a lot of pressure. And he's also going to be really able to apply a ton of pressure with his upper body because now there's more stability in the stroke. And if you look at velocity graphs of swimmers, it's this portion here where swimmers create a ton of speed. One, they have their arms and their legs working at the same time. Obviously, that's going to be super helpful for creating propulsion. But two, because the rotation of the body has now been countered, swimmers can work against something pretty solid and they can really put a lot of force in the water and have it be effective. And if you've ever swum without the kick, you've either used a buoy or you just dragged your legs, what you'll really feel here is that it's difficult to apply pressure here and you'll feel yourself just kind of rise up. But when the kick's there, you can feel that there's that much more resistance to work against. There's a lot more stability. And again, it's because of that kick canceling out the rotations of the body, allowing swimmers to be stable, and then they can work against that stability in order to apply a lot of force to the water. And again, if you look at velocity graphs, this moment tends to be the fastest point that any swimmer will move through the water on the surface of the water. So they achieve temporary speeds that are higher than what they typically achieve in freestyle. So this movement is really, really powerful. And again, because the kick is canceling some of the rotation of the upper body, which creates more stability, more force, more speed. So again, as we come around here, you can see he's at an incline. We need to get rotated back. The kick happens right there, and then boom, you can see that quick rotation. And because the upper body's rotating down and the kick happens to rotate the hips up, both segments are moving in the same direction, and so that allows for a very quick change in position, which is exactly what we're looking for in the beginning of the stroke. And again, in this point, when the kick happens here, there's going to be a canceling of those rotations, and so there's actually going to be a lot more stability at that point in the stroke cycle. So just like freestyle and backstroke, the kick is playing a key role at managing rotation throughout the stroke, and when done well and done at the right time, swimmers can create more speed as a result. So we'll take a look at another swimmer here from a different angle, and this swimmer has a slightly different stroke. It's a little flatter. We're still going to see the same dynamics, and hopefully by contrasting the angle and the swimmer, we can get a better understanding of what's happening. So as we can see at this point, she's at an incline, and that's not good for minimizing the amount of drag that she's creating. So we're gonna see the upper body start to rotate down, the kick happens, and then there's that very quick rotation of the body to get everything back in line. Again, that allows her to minimize the amount of drag that she creates, and it helps her, as you can see with the upper body and her arms, it gets her in a position where she can start to effectively set up the stroke to prepare to pull. Then as we move through the pull, we're going to see that rising of the body, and there starts to be an incline because of the kick is not happening. And as the kick happens, you can see she starts to level out a little bit. It's not going to reverse the angle that's already happened, but it's going to prevent it from continuing to get worse, and she's going to have a stable position there. So again, she kicks through, and when she starts to get to the second half of the pull, where hand speed is really going to pick up, there's that stability that's driven by the kick. And that allows her whole body to rise up a little bit. Now she can quickly transition into the recovery after swinging the arms out. And so then we're back to the same position at the beginning of the stroke cycle. So now she needs to kick again to magnify the rotation, get back into alignment. And then as she starts to pull, she's going to start that incline because she hasn't kicked yet. She starts the kick. That puts the brakes on further elevating the upper body and dropping the hips. Everything's more stable. She can continue to apply pressure to the water, and that's going to allow her to create more propulsion, which is going to be absolutely necessary because after she lets go of the water here, she's no longer applying pressure to the water with her arms or her legs, and she's going to be in a position here where she's creating a lot of drag, so she has to create a lot of speed in order to get through that portion of the stroke. Again, using the kick to magnify the rotation of the body, and then again here, using the kick to minimize the rotation of the body. So the kick is going to have a critical function in terms of controlling rotation. At one point in the stroke cycle, it's used to magnify the rotation. At another point in the stroke cycle, it's used to control rotation. And so that's why not only is the kick really, really important, but when the kick happens, it's absolutely critical. If swimmers don't kick effectively, they're going to struggle to swim fast. And if they don't kick effectively at the right time, they're going to struggle to swim fast as well. It's a critical skill that swimmers need to learn if they want to swim fast. Just like in butterfly, rotation does occur in breaststroke. However, as defined by Bill Boomer, it occurs across the short axis of the body, rotating forward and backwards, as opposed to the long axis, rotating side to side. And while not as dramatic as in butterfly, the kick does influence this rotation in order to help swimmers create a little bit more propulsion and, more importantly, get back into line to minimize the amount of drag that they create. Let's find out what's happening and why it matters. Traditionally, the breaststroke kick has been thought of as being an around motion. In reality, it's very much a backwards motion in order to help swimmers move forward. Even that doesn't tell the full story. Almost all breaststroke kickers are not only going to kick back, they're actually going to kick down to some extent in order to maximize the kick and to positively influence the position of the body. When swimmers kick down, that's going to move the body up, and because the kick is happening at the end of the body, the kick isn't just going to facilitate an upwards movement, it's going to be a rotational movement that moves the swimmer back into line. After swimmers pull and after they breathe, they're going to be moving down the pool at an inclined position. To breathe and pull, swimmers don't just lift up, they rotate up. And so in order to get back into line, they need to rotate back down. And that happens, one, because of the forward motion of the hands and the chest and the head when swimmers return the breath, but also when the kick happens to lift the hips up. And so if swimmers can couple the forward motion of the body and they can combine that with a kick that's not only moving back but moving down, that's going to rotate the entire body back into line. And because breaststrokers create so much resistance as they move forward through the water, due to the underwater arm recoveries and the underwater leg recoveries, they create a ton of resistance. And so any amount of resistance that they can eliminate is going to result in faster speeds. So the more that swimmers can, again, rotate back into line after they kick and after they return the recovery of the arms, they're going to be creating a position that creates a lot less drag, and that means swimmers can create a lot more speed for a lot less effort. So while the kick definitely shouldn't be moving around, it does need to move back, and if swimmers can ensure that some aspect of the kick is moving down, they're going to get that rotational benefit, and they're going to get back in the line faster, they're going to get back in the line easier, and they're going to get back in the line more effectively. Let's take a look at some elite swimmers making it happen. So our first swimmer here has one of the best lines in breaststroke that I've seen. You can see that position right here. And so part of that is that she does a good job with her kick in order to get her hips back up in line. Now, some of the swimmers we're going to see, there's actually a much more dramatic movement of the hips following the kick. She's actually relatively subtle with it, but it's a subtle skill that makes a big difference. And it's a contributor into her magnificent line, which allows her to create so much speed because she creates so little resistance. So if we watch through the swim here, she's going to kick here, and then right there, you can see that there's the downward movement, and it's subtle, but right there, you see the hips come up just a little bit. You see the chest press down just a little bit, and that rotational movement gets her into a better line that you can see right here. And so it actually doesn't finish until right there. Now, that's a really, really good line. If she didn't kick down, she might end up in a position like this, which again is not so bad if we look just at the upper body, but this is even better. And so having a kick that's moving down, even if it's subtle, even if it's not dramatic, is going to help swimmers get back into line more effectively. And so again, it's the subtle kick, the subtle downward motion of the kick, that allows the hips to ride up just a little bit more, allows her to get into a line that's a little bit more effective, and that really makes a huge difference. The consequences of drag are really, really significant, and so if someone can get rid of any of it, not only will they go faster, but it's going to be a lot more efficient, and if it costs less energy to go the same speed, they're going to be able to hold their speed a whole lot longer. So one more time, she's going to kick here. There's going to be the downward component to it right there, and you can see the subtle rise of the hips again from right there. It's a key skill that makes a big difference in terms of creating that much more speed, that much more efficiency, and therefore faster times. Now, if we watch these two swimmers here, we've got two more Olympic champions over 200 meters breaststroke. And if we watch the swimmer on the left here, you're going to see a much more dramatic movement. The swimmer on the right is a little bit more subtle, but it's still there. So if we watch here, you can see right there, the hips really ride up. And so he's going to kick here. That kick's going to be down, and you can see the hips really pop up to the surface. He gets that surge forward. And again, that's going to allow him to establish a much better line. And so swimmers that tend to have a little bit more undulation, you're going to see that show up in the kick. And so he's got a little bit more up and down motion here. And then boom, there's that kick. The hips ride up, and that allows him to kind of scoot forward. He's got a really good line out in front. So same idea as our previous swimmer. This swimmer is going to exaggerate that a little bit more, and that obviously helps him go a little bit faster. And so it's not that more is better, it's that the concept is important, and then swimmers need to figure out how is that going to apply best for their skill set, for their stroke, for their body. Now, if we watch the swimmer on the right, we're going to see the same thing. Again, not quite as dramatic, but right there, you can see things pop up. And so he's a little bit more similar to the previous swimmer that we took a look at. And they actually, those two probably have the best lines that I think I've seen in breaststroke. And so again, he's going to have a little bit more subtle movement than the swimmer on the left. But right there, you can see the hips pop up. And you can see that he uses that kick to get everything back in line. And so it's a somewhat subtle downward kick that happens, again, right there. And then the hips pop up as a result. And then as swimmers kick down, they do need to recover the legs back up. And you can see with this swimmer here, he does kick down. The feet do end up down, the hips come up, and then he lifts the legs up to the surface in order, again, to minimize the drag, minimize the resistance that he creates. So if we watch these two swimmers one more time, we've got the big movement on the left there, the more subtle movement on the right, bigger movement there, more subtle on the right. Again, same concept, different application based upon the individual swimmer. So those first three swimmers were all racing over 200 meters. This swimmer is racing over 100 meters. We're going to see the same thing. And in some cases, it can actually be more important in shorter distances because swimmers have less time to get back in the line due to the higher stroke rates. And so what we'll see is right there, you can see those hips come up as a result of the kick. So down there, and then boom, and then they rise up. You can see the rotational effect of the body. You can see everything kind of rotate up and forward. That's going to push the upper body down, push the lower body up, and that gets everything level in the water. So a really key skill here, and it's going to happen even when swimmers are using really high stroke rates and they're trying to go really fast. So right now, he's rotated up, he's at an incline, and then he moves forward with the upper body. That's going to have a rotational effect, and then he finishes that with the kick there to get the hips up to complete that full rotation. So both aspects, the upper body and the lower body, are contributing to that rotational effect. If swimmers can do both, the impact is going to be greater than if they only do one. So again, he drives down there, gets the hips up by kicking down, and that helps him get back in a line more aggressively, more quickly. If you want to learn more about how to help swimmers get back in line fast, how to train that ability, check out the video below.